Rain hammered the canopy as warning lights flared red across the cockpit. A single message glowed: fuel imbalance. 6 minutes remaining. Harper Lane gripped the stick, sweat sliding beneath her gloves. The Phantom bucked in the storm, metal screaming, altimeter needle plunging. Lightning flashed. The runway was gone. Clouds swallowed everything. Her voice trembled through the radio. If I can't hold her steady, this is the end. And then the screen went black. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Rain pounded the canopy of the cockpit. Warning lights flashed across the console, red symbols screaming against the dark. One message glowed harder than the rest. Fuel imbalance. 6 minutes remaining. Harper Lane tightened her grip on the stick, knuckles pale inside her gloves. The VX-31 Phantom shook under crosswinds, its frame groaning like an old ship in a storm. Hold together, she muttered. Just a little longer. Lightning split the sky, a jagged vein of white across endless black. The altimeter needle dropped fast. Her hand hovered above a failing switch. Then the screen went dark. 3 months earlier, the world was quieter then. Harper sat in a lawyer's office, worn boots scuffed, coat faded from too many winters. At 42, she looked older than her years, her life carved by service and survival. Once she had been an Army aviation technician, but the garage she built afterward had gone under last year. Debt collected like dust, and with it came silence. Across the desk, the lawyer cleared his throat. He pushed 2 heavy brass keys toward her. Transfer of property, inheritance of Raymond Lane. Her father's name still carried weight, even 3 months after his funeral. Hearing it out loud tightened something in her chest. The keys were tarnished, edges scarred. Numbers were engraved deep in their metal surface. They felt cold, official military issue. Harper turned them slowly in her palm, sensing they were tied to something larger than an old shed. She stepped outside. Autumn air sharp with pine smoke. The courthouse square behind her buzzed faintly with traffic, but to her it felt muted, distant. She stood beside her Jeep, keys heavy in her pocket. Her phone buzzed. A text from Clara Boone, her cousin. Don't waste time on Dad's junk. Sell it and move on. You need money, not memories. Harper stared at the screen, jaw tight. Clara never understood. To her, Raymond Lane was a quiet man who fixed radios and tinkered in his shed. But Harper remembered the discipline in his silence, the sharpness in his eyes. He hadn't just been tinkering, he had been guarding something. She silenced the phone, turned the ignition, and drove. The road wound through Virginia hills, 2 lanes twisting across forgotten countryside. Faded barns leaned against the horizon, and leaves blazed red and gold across the ridges. For 40 minutes she drove, the weight of the keys pressing into her thigh. Her father's words, though few, echoed in memory, always about maintenance, vigilance, never about quitting. At last, the woods parted, a clearing opened wide. There it was. A hangar rose from the earth, steel ribs curved like the spine of a beast. Rust streaked its flanks, but the shape remained imposing, untouched by decades. Weeds choked the fence line, but chains still bound the gates. The building looked abandoned to anyone else. To Harper, it looked like it had been waiting. She parked, engine ticking in the chill air. Gravel crunched under her boots as she approached. The lock was square, military grade, built for durability, not convenience. She slid the first brass key into place. The mechanism groaned, then clicked, echoing hollow against the steel. The second key turned slower, grinding through rust. The chain fell heavy, links clattering against the ground. Harper pulled. The hangar doors resisted, then yielded, groaning apart until a slice of darkness split the morning. Cold air rushed out, carrying with it a sharp tang oil, polish, machine metal. Her flashlight cut the black. The beam landed on workbenches arranged in precise order. Tools aligned with surgical neatness. Manuals stacked straight, their spines unbroken by time. This wasn't a junkyard. Every surface spoke of intention. Every detail whispered discipline. Her light drifted further, catching a massive form draped in canvas. Long and sleek, its nose pointed forward, wings folded beneath heavy tarp. Harper's breath hitched. She stepped closer, boots echoing across concrete. The edge of the cover had slipped just enough to reveal skin of polished aluminum, untouched by corrosion. Letters showed faintly under dust. Stenciled decades ago, VX-31 Phantom. Her pulse thudded in her ears. This wasn't a relic. It wasn't discarded history. It was alive, hidden in plain sight. She reached for the tarp, stopped, pulled back. Her father's silence over the years, his long absences, his endless hours in the garage, all of it made sense now. He hadn't been wasting time. He had been preparing. A sound broke behind her. Tires over gravel, headlights sweeping the fence. Harper froze, but the engine sputtered and quieted. An old Honda rolled into the clearing, coughing as it braked. Ethan Cole climbed out, her 19-year-old godson, tall and lanky in a hoodie, eyes wide with curiosity. He shoved his hands into his pockets, voice hesitant. "Clara said you were out here. I wanted to check in." Harper exhaled, gestured him inside. "Come see." Ethan stepped through the door and stopped cold. His jaw dropped. "Is that a jet?" Harper folded her arms. Your grandfather's." He circled the tarp, eyes tracing the shape with awe. "This doesn't look abandoned. It looks ready." Before Harper could answer, a low crackle cut the silence. Both turned toward the far wall. A control panel blinked green. Static hissed through an old speaker, then cleared. A voice, calm and precise, filled the hangar. "Phantom base. Report status. Confirm asset integrity." "Over." Ethan's eyes darted to Harper, panic flashing. "They think it's still active." Her chest tightened. She reached for the microphone, hand trembling. "This is Harper Lane, Raymond Lane's daughter. My father passed away 3 months ago." Silence. The panel buzzed faintly, light holding steady. Then the voice returned. "Sharper." Acknowledged. "Stand by. Assessment team en route." Harper pulled her hand back slowly. The air thickened, charged. Ethan's face paled. What just happened? She swallowed, words thin. This place, it was never abandoned. The Phantom loomed behind them, shadowed under its tarp. Outside, the wind stirred, rattling the chains left lying in the gravel. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but it was coming. Morning light crept through cracks in the hangar roof. Dust hung in golden beams, floating above the Phantom like incense in a chapel. Harper Lane stood at the workbench, fingers brushing a yellowed envelope she hadn't noticed the night before. Her name was written in block letters across the front. She slid it open with the edge of a wrench, unfolded a single sheet, and read in her father's steady handwriting. "My girl, this plane is not for war. It is for relief. If they ever reach out to you, listen carefully. You have the skills. You have the heart. Protect it." Harper's throat tightened. For years, she had mistaken his silence for distance. Now she saw it for what it was, burden carried alone. Ethan Cole appeared from behind a stack of crates, arms full of binders. Dust streaked his hoodie, but his grin was wide. "You need to see this." He dropped the binders onto the bench. Across each cover, stamped in bold red letters, Project Horizon. They flipped the pages together. Schematics filled every sheet, stealth frames redesigned for low detection, drop bays modified for medical pods, diagrams of water filtration systems and mobile comms units. Ethan's voice was hushed. "This isn't a fighter. It's a lifeline." Harper traced her father's notes along the margins. Fuel efficiency tables, landing approaches for unpaved ground, warnings about civilian zones. He hadn't been tinkering for fun. He had been preserving something the world had abandoned. The silence broke with the crunch of tires outside. Gravel shifted under heavy wheels. Harper stiffened, gesturing for Ethan to stay back. A black SUV idled beyond the gate, windows tinted, antenna jutting from the roof. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She wore a dark blazer, her stride precise, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. Her badge caught the light. Agent Dana Kessler, Department of Defense, Harper Lane. Her voice was clipped, authoritative. Harper nodded cautiously. "That's me." Kessler's gaze slid past her to the tarp-draped Phantom. "Your father was the registered custodian of Horizon assets. His records confirm it. Upon his death, provisional guardianship transfers to you." She held out a folder stamped 30 years ago. Inside, one clause was underlined: in absence of reassignment, hereditary custodianship may be considered, pending assessment. Harper's pulse quickened. So this was meant to be passed down. Kessler nodded once. Unofficially, yes. He kept it intact longer than anyone thought possible. Now the question is, will you? Before Harper could respond, another engine approached. A silver SUV rolled up behind the first, sleeker, more polished. The man who stepped out carried the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He wore a tan coat, a leather briefcase under one arm. "Grant Sutter," he announced smoothly. "Director, Asset Recovery Division." He extended a hand Harper did not take. "We're contracted to secure dormant federal property," he continued. "Unregistered aircraft, abandoned facilities, liability issues. Effective immediately. You've got 96 hours before this site is sealed." Kessler stepped between them, voice sharp. "This facility is under department review." Sutter's smile widened. "Reviews don't prevent accidents? Best for everyone if we take custody now?" The tension thickened. Harper stood between them, folder in one hand, keys in the other. Her father's letter still burned in her pocket. Protect it. The SUVs pulled away minutes later, but their presence lingered like storm clouds. One promised oversight, the other promised erasure. Neither offered trust. That evening, the hangar was silent again. The Phantom loomed in shadows, tarps sagging like cloaks. Harper sat at the workbench, staring at the schematics, unable to shake Sutter's smug grin. Ethan paced nearby, restless energy spilling from him. "They're going to take it. If you don't act, they'll chain the doors, melt it down, and sell it for scrap." Harper rubbed her temples. "And if I fight them, they'll bury me in paperwork." "Then don't fight with paperwork," Ethan snapped. "Fight with proof. Fly it." His words echoed in the vast space. Harper looked up sharply, but before she could reply, a noise rang out, metal on concrete. Both froze. The sound came from deep within the hangar. Harper grabbed her flashlight, moving cautiously toward the Phantom. The tarp rustled slightly, a draft cutting across its folds. She pulled it back and smelled fuel sharp, unmistakable. Her beam traced the floor, following a thin, glistening stream. It led to the Phantom's hydraulic line, sliced clean through. Harper crouched low, fingers brushing the cut, smooth, precise. This wasn't age or rust. It was sabotage. Ethan's voice trembled. Who would she cut him off? Jaw tight. Sutter. Her mind raced. He hadn't come just to threaten. He had already acted, already tried to cripple the machine before she could prove it alive. For a moment, despair surged. If the hydraulics failed in flight, the Phantom would never land. One wrong move, and it would all end in fire. But Harper forced herself to breathe. She remembered her father's logbook. She grabbed it, flipping through pages, searching. There it was, scrawled in block letters, underlined twice: if secondary pressure loss, bypass manual line. She traced the drawing with her thumb. The instructions were crude but clear. A patch job, a hidden failsafe, a secret meant for her. Harper looked at the Phantom, dark skin gleaming faintly under the overhead lights. Not broken, Not finished, just waiting for someone who believed. Ethan knelt beside her, whispering, "Can you fix it?" She closed the book, resolve setting in. "I can, and I will." The hangar seemed to hold its breath. Outside, and the hills sank into shadow, the last light gone. Somewhere beyond the trees, an engine started, then cut off again. Whoever had been here was still watching. Inside, Harper rolled up her sleeves, set the logbook on the floor, and reached for her wrench. The fight for the Phantom had already begun. The call came just after dawn. Ethan Cole's voice shook over the line, quick and urgent. "Texas is burning. Wildfires spreading. A chemical plant exploded on top of it. Roads are blocked. Convoys can't get through." Harper Lane pressed the phone harder against her ear. "Casualties. One confirmed dead already," Ethan said. "And a kid, type 1 diabetic. No insulin left. He's got maybe 8 hours before he crashes." Harper stood in the doorway of the hangar, staring at the tarp-draped Phantom. The morning mist clung to her boots, heavy as the news she carried. This was the moment her father had prepared her for. But the timing couldn't have been worse. Agent Dana Kessler had been pulled back to Washington overnight, summoned to hearings. The only authority left was Grant Sutter, and he wasted no time pressing his advantage. By noon, his silver SUV was back, papers in hand. 48 hours, he said smoothly. "Sign over custody, or we'll seal the doors. You can't risk lives with unauthorized hardware." Harper snatched the folder and slammed it shut. "Lives are already at risk." Sutter's grin was infuriating. "Then don't make it worse." He left tire ruts in the gravel, leaving the hangar in silence once again. Harper turned to Ethan. "Get the lamps, the generators, every spare battery you can find." He blinked. "You're really going to?" "Yep," she cut him off. "We fly tonight." The hangar transformed into a workshop under siege. Ethan dragged old floodlights into position, wiring them to portable generators. He lined the cracked runway with battery lamps, his pickup parked nose out, headlights aimed like guiding beacons. Harper knelt under the Phantom's belly, tools clanging against concrete. Her father's logbook lay open beside her, pages marked with grease and her fingerprints. She clamped a steel sleeve over the severed hydraulic line, tightened it until her wrists ached. Then she followed the diagram to reroute flow through the manual bypass. Old fittings groaned, but they locked into place. Sweat ran down her temple. She whispered as she worked, a quiet prayer to a man who had trusted her with everything. "You left the map. I'm following it." By dusk, the sky boiled with dark clouds. Thunderheads towered on the horizon, purple and heavy with lightning. The air smelled sharp, charged with storm and smoke drifting north from Texas. Harper climbed into the cockpit, heart hammering in her throat. The seat leather was cracked but familiar, like it had been waiting just for her. She glanced out the canopy. Ethan raised a thumb from the runway's edge, face pale but determined. She sealed the canopy, pulled the harness tight, and flicked the ignition. The Phantom woke like a beast long asleep. Engines roared, shaking the hangar walls, instruments flickering green across the panel. Hydraulic needles wavered, then steadied. "Easy," she whispered. "Don't let me down." The Phantom rolled forward, wheels grinding over weeds and fissures. The cracked runway stretched ahead, lit by rows of trembling lamps. She shoved the throttle. The jet surged, rattling hard over broken pavement. At the last second, she pulled back, and the Phantom lifted, nose slicing into storm-dark sky. The ground dropped away. Harper's breath stuck in her chest. She was airborne. Altitude climbed fast. Radar blinked with storm cells crowding the map, jagged clusters blocking every path. One narrow corridor cut straight toward the disaster zone. Lightning strobed across her windshield. Rain hammered the fuselage, the Phantom shuddering under turbulence. Harper gritted her teeth, adjusting the stick. "Dad, you built this for a reason. Don't fail me now." She threaded the jet through pockets of calm, weaving along the storm's edge. The drop zone icons blinked on her panel, each one loaded from her father's coordinates. At the first marker, she flipped the bay release. Crates slid free into the storm, parachutes snapping open against the wind. Below, fields smoldered in orange light. Families clustered near ditches, faces upturned in disbelief as supplies fell from the sky. One crate landed in a schoolyard. Children ran toward it, hands reaching. Another struck soft near a farmhouse, tarp unfolding to reveal water filters and medkits. At the third drop, Harper banked low. Through smoke, she spotted a woman barefoot in the mud, clutching a child. Their eyes lifted just as a crate landed yards away. The woman raised one trembling hand, a silent gesture of gratitude. Harper swallowed hard, blinking against the blur in her vision. She pulled the phantom back into cloud. Relief surged through her chest, but then a warning light flashed red. Hydraulic pressure left. Critical. Her patch line was leaking under stress. The bypass wasn't holding. She scanned her radar nearest airfield 40 miles away. Too far? Ethan's voice crackled over the handheld radio. Status losing pressure. Gear might not deploy. I need a place to land. Static hissed. Then his voice returned. Urgent. I'll mark the county road. Follow the lights. Minutes later, headlights carved through the dark below. Ethan's pickup darted along a narrow stretch of asphalt, taillights flashing as he dropped flares every 20 yards. Harper circled once, hands shaking on the stick. The landing gear stuttered halfway, locking uneven. Sparks already licked the edge of the bay doors. She dropped altitude, trees whipping past the canopy. The road stretched like a thread of silver, lit by Ethan's desperate trail. Her jaw clenched. Here we go. The phantom slammed down. Tires screamed, sparks spraying like fireworks. The left gear collapsed, metal grinding into pavement. The jet fishtailed, showering the night with fire. Harper fought the stick, arms burning, eyes locked ahead. At the last second, she jerked hard right. The phantom skidded sideways, shrieking metal echoing through the hills, then screeched to a halt. 30 feet short of a narrow bridge, silence crashed down, broken only by ticking metal and Harper's ragged breath. She sat frozen, fingers still clamped on the controls. Rain hissed over cooling steel. For a moment, she couldn't move. Then headlights approached fast. Ethan jumped from his truck, sprinting into view, chest heaving. He raised both arms, disbelief written across his face. You did it, he gasped. Harper unstrapped, canopy sliding back. She looked down at him, face pale but fierce. No, she corrected. We did. The phantom sat scarred but alive, steam rising from its panels. The road smoked with burnt rubber and gouged asphalt. But in Texas, families now held water, medicine, light. A boy clutched insulin that meant he would see another day. Harper placed one hand on the battered fuselage, whispering to the storm, still flying. Lightning flickered across the horizon. The storm wasn't over, but neither was she. Rain hissed against the phantom's scarred fuselage. Steam rose from gouged panels where metal had kissed pavement. The county road smelled of burnt rubber, the night still crackling with tension. Headlights cut through the darkness. Black SUVs rolled up, doors opening in unison. Federal inspectors stepped out, clipboards in hand. Voices clipped and cold. Miss Lane, one called, this aircraft is unlicensed. This facility is unregistered. Effective immediately. Both will be seized. Harper Lane stood beside the battered jet, arms folded across her oil-streaked jacket. Her chest still heaved from the landing, but her eyes stayed sharp. She had delivered aid, and now they wanted to chain the doors. More vehicles pulled in. Red and blue lights strobed across wet asphalt, radios buzzing with bureaucratic chatter. An agent hammered a property to be sealed sign into the roadside mud. Before the inspector could read the order aloud, another car approached, sleek, dark blue, local plates. It slid to a halt, headlights washing across the scene. Mayor Linda Hartwell stepped out, coat belted tight, folder heavy in her hands. She moved fast, heels cutting through gravel, ignoring the frowns around her. Her voice carried like thunder. This woman just saved 200 lives in Texas, and your paperwork nearly stopped her. The inspector faltered. His pen hovered above the form. Madam Mayor, and with respect, no. Hartwell cut him off, eyes burning. With respect, rules cannot strangle action when people are dying. She flipped open the folder, scrawled her name across the top page, and shoved it toward the nearest agent. Emergency authorization. 90 days. Silence spread like a wave. Inspectors exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked away, embarrassed. From the sidelines, Grant Sutter leaned against his silver SUV, jaw tight. His polished confidence was gone. Hartwell's gaze pinned him. You profited from stripping what others built, she said evenly. Tonight, you leave this county, and you don't come back. Sutter's smirk died. He collected his men and drove off without a word, taillights fading into rain. For the first time since the storm began, Harper let her shoulders drop. She reached up and brushed the Phantom's scarred skin. The jet had survived. So had she. 2 days later, sunlight broke across the Virginia hills. The hangar doors groaned open, this time not with secrecy but with purpose. Inside, the Phantom stood repaired and proud. Panels scrubbed clean, wings stretched like a bird ready to rise again. Harper hung a brass plaque above the workbench. She hammered it into steel, wiped dust from the letters, and stepped back. Raymond Lane, you believed. The words gleamed in morning light. She whispered, It's yours, Dad, but now it's mine too. Ethan Cole snapped a photo, grinning. Looks perfect. It's not decoration, Harper replied. It's a promise. Word spread faster than she could control. Grainy phone clips appeared online, a black jet dropping crates through smoke, parachutes blossoming over fire-scorched fields. Survivors posted pictures of aid stamped with the Lane family name. News anchors called it the Ghost Angel. Conspiracy forums buzzed. Was it a prototype, a billionaire's toy? A relic brought back from the grave? The Department of Defense issued no comment. Grant Sutter kept silent. But online, the story soared. People wanted to believe in a machine built to save instead of destroy. Harper never sought headlines, but each image lit a fire inside her. Her father hadn't wasted decades. He had been right all along. By the end of the month, visitors began arriving. Not journalists, but volunteers. A retired mechanic from Ohio drove overnight to offer his hands. A young woman rejected from aviation school came carrying notebooks. A combat medic tired of red tape arrived with boxes of supplies. They knocked on the steel doors like pilgrims. Harper opened each one. Soon, the hangar hummed with voices and clanging tools. Ethan cleared tables, laid out manuals, and marked zones for training. Above the entrance, a hand-painted sign went up, Lane Foundation Workshop. Its mission was simple: teach the overlooked, give veteran, women, and youth without direction the skills to repair, to fly, to serve. The hangar no longer hid a secret. It built futures. Harper's days filled quickly. Dawn inspections of the Phantom, afternoons teaching hydraulic systems, evenings sketching expansion plans by lamplight. Her calluses returned, but now they felt earned. Ethan thrived as her apprentice, filling notebooks with ratios, wiring charts, and navigation math. One evening, she caught him grinning at a wing strut he had just repaired. What's funny, she asked. He shrugged, face smudged with grease. For the first time, I feel like what I'm doing matters. Harper smiled softly. That's the point. Requests poured in faster than she could read them. Nonprofits, disaster networks, small towns begging for help. One email stood out. We heard the Ghost Angel is real. If it is, please don't stop. Harper printed it and pinned it beside her father's plaque. She wanted every new recruit to see why they were here. The world didn't need more weapons. It needed more people who believed. Weeks turned into months. The hangar changed shape. Tarps disappeared. Fresh benches gleamed with polished tools. Spare parts filled shelves, donated by sympathetic contractors. The once hollow space now rang with drills, laughter, and hope. Still, at night, Harper sometimes stood alone beside the Phantom. She traced its scars, remembering the storm and the landing that nearly killed them both. But scars weren't weakness. They were proof of survival. So were hers. On the anniversary of her father's death, Harper carried a plain notebook to the workbench. Beside it lay his old flight log, worn and yellowed. She set them side by side, the past and the future. Then she pressed her pen to the first page. Day 1, training class. The hangar hummed around her, alive with the sound of preparation. Outside, the hills breathed in a new season, the air sharp with change. Harper paused, then added a second line. Not the end, the beginning. She closed the notebook gently, eyes lifting to the Phantom. Its black frame gleamed in morning light, wings stretching like a shadow reborn. She thought of the boy who had received insulin in Texas, the mother who raised a trembling hand in smoke, the plaque above her bench. Some people inherit money, some inherit land. I inherited wings, she whispered, and I'll never let them break again. The hangar stood tall, no longer a ruin, but a beacon. And for Harper Lane, the sky was no longer a ceiling, it was only a runway.